She hid her bruises under long sleeves and her tears behind a smile. Nobody noticed, until four powerful brothers walked into that coffee shop and saw what everyone else missed. What happened next changed everything. Stay with me, because this story will break your heart before it heals it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Heart and Hush Stories. Before we dive into today's story, I need you to do something for me. Look around you. How many people do you pass every day without really seeing them? That cashier who's a little too quiet. Your coworker who always says, "I'm fine." The truth is, some of the deepest pain is the most invisible. Today's story is about Emma, a 26-year-old woman who became a master at hiding her suffering. And it's about four brothers who saw through the mask when no one else could. This isn't just a story about rescue. It's about what happens when broken people find the courage to let others in. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about the silent battles people fight and the unexpected angels who sometimes show up to help us win them. Let me paint you a picture of Emma's life. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., not 5:45, not 5:50, but 5:47, her alarm would go off in the tiny studio apartment she could barely afford. She'd spent years perfecting the art of waking up before the bruises started throbbing, before the memories of the night before could fully form in her mind. You know what's heartbreaking? Emma was brilliant. Full scholarship to university, degree in graphic design, a portfolio that could make you weep with its creativity. But here's the thing about trauma. It doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't care about your dreams. She worked at a small coffee shop called Morning Brew in downtown Seattle. Not because she loved coffee, but because it was quiet. Because her manager, an older woman named Beth, asked very few questions. Because the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift meant she could avoid most social interactions. Emma had this thing she did. I noticed it in my own life too when I was going through a rough patch. She made herself small, literally. Shoulders hunched, voice barely above a whisper, always apologizing even when she hadn't done anything wrong. "Sorry, here's your latte. Sorry, did you need change? Sorry for existing," her body language seemed to say. Her apartment was exactly what you'd expect. Minimal furniture, a mattress on the floor, no pictures on the walls because pictures meant memories and memories meant pain. One plant, a half-dead succulent named Kevin, because even Emma needed something to care for, even if she couldn't quite care for herself. But here's what people didn't know. Here's what they couldn't see under those long sleeves and turtlenecks she wore even in summer. Emma had left an abusive relationship 18 months ago. Not a boyfriend, her stepfather. The man who was supposed to protect her after her mom died when she was 16. Instead, he'd turned her teenage years into a nightmare of verbal abuse, manipulation, and, eventually, violence. She got out at 24. Ran, actually. In the middle of the night with 2 bags and $300 she'd been hiding for months. But here's what they don't tell you about escaping abuse. You can leave the place, but the prison travels with you. It's in your mind, in your nervous system, in the way you flinch when someone raises their hand to wave. Emma had convinced herself she was safe being invisible. If no one saw her, no one could hurt her. Right? Wrong. Because invisible also means no one can help you. Now, let me introduce you to the Sawyer brothers because, honestly, these four are a study in contrasts. Alexander Sawyer, 35, was the oldest, CEO of Sawyer Industries, a tech company worth billions. And yeah, I know what you're thinking, rich, powerful, probably arrogant, right? But Alexander had this thing about him. He noticed people, really noticed them. Maybe because he'd lost his parents young and had to raise 3 younger brothers while building an empire. Suffering gives you different eyes. Benjamin, 33, was the COO and Alexander's right hand. Numbers guy, strategic mind, but with a protective streak a mile wide. The one who made sure everyone was okay even if he pretended he didn't care. You know the type. Grumpy exterior, marshmallow interior. Christopher, 30, headed their design department. Artist, empath, the one who felt everything deeply. He'd struggled with anxiety for years and was open about therapy, meditation, all of it. Chris understood darkness because he'd walked through it. Daniel, 28, was the youngest and ran their charitable foundation. Idealistic, passionate, sometimes impulsive. The kind of guy who'd give you his jacket in the rain and mean it. These four had a tradition. Every Sunday morning, 7 a.m., they'd meet at this little coffee shop. You guessed it. Morning Brew. Not some fancy place, not their corporate cafeteria. This small, quiet shop where they could just be brothers, not executives. And that's where everything changed. It was a Sunday in late October, one of those Seattle mornings where the rain hasn't decided if it's drizzle or downpour. The shop was nearly empty, just old Mr. Peterson reading his newspaper, a couple of students with laptops, and Emma behind the counter. Alexander noticed her first. He'd been coming to this shop for 8 months, and he realized he couldn't remember ever hearing her full voice. She was always there, always efficient, always disappearing, even when she was right in front of you. But that morning, something was different. When Emma reached up to grab a cup from the high shelf, her sleeve slipped. Just for a second. Just enough. The bruise was yellow-green, that particular shade that means it's healing, but was pretty bad to begin with. Finger-shaped marks around her wrist. Alexander's blood went cold. He knew what those looked like. Their mother had worn the same marks before their father finally left her, before she found the strength to protect herself and her boys. He glanced at Benjamin, who had gone completely still, his jaw tight. They'd both seen it. Chris and Daniel were arguing about some sports game, oblivious. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is something I think about a lot. What do you do when you see someone suffering? Do you ignore it because it's uncomfortable? Do you jump in and potentially make things worse? Do you respect their privacy or honor your conscience? Alexander made a choice. He waited until Emma brought their coffee, and then he did something simple. He looked at her. Really looked. Not past her, not through her, but at her. "Thank you," he said. And his voice had this quality that made her meet his eyes for the first time in 8 months. And in that moment, something passed between them. Recognition. Not the romantic kind, not yet, but the kind where one survivor sees another. You know what changed first? Not everything. Not some big dramatic rescue, just small things. The next Sunday, Alexander came back. Same time, but this time he asked her name. Actually asked, then actually listened to the answer. "Emma," she whispered. "Emma," he repeated, like her name was worth remembering. "I'm Alexander." The Sunday after that, Benjamin came alone. Ordered a complicated drink, half calf, almond milk, extra foam, the works. Not because he wanted it, but because it gave him an excuse to have a longer conversation. To ask, "How are you today?" and wait for a real answer. Emma didn't know what to do with this attention. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her, this tiny, neglected part she'd buried deep down, was desperately thirsty for kindness. Christopher was next. He came in on a Wednesday with a sketchbook and spent 3 hours in the corner booth, drawing. When he left, he accidentally left a drawing on the table. Emma found it later, a sketch of the coffee shop, but in the window, he'd drawn a bird in a cage with the door open. The message was clear. You can leave. You're allowed to fly. Emma cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Daniel was the most direct. He came in one morning with a flyer for a free self-defense class his foundation was sponsoring. "I know this is random," he said, his young face earnest, "but we're trying to get the word out. Any chance you could put this up?" He'd highlighted one line. "Learn to protect yourself. Learn you're worth protecting." Now, here's something crucial I want to talk about. The brothers didn't swoop in and try to fix Emma. They didn't demand to know who hurt her or threaten to find him. They didn't make her pain about their need to be heroes. They just showed up. Consistently, predictably, safely. And slowly, week by week, Emma started to thaw. She started saying thank you without apologizing first, started making eye contact that lasted more than a second, started, and this is huge, started wearing a short-sleeved shirt one day. Alexander was there that day. He noticed immediately but didn't stare, didn't comment, just smiled at her like she'd done something brave. Because she had. It all came crashing down on a Tuesday in November. Emma's stepfather found her. I don't know how, maybe through social media, maybe through someone who knew someone, but he showed up at the coffee shop at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before her shift ended. She saw him through the window and literally couldn't breathe. Panic attack, full-blown. Her hands started shaking so badly she dropped a ceramic mug. It shattered everywhere and she just stood there, frozen, staring at the door. Beth, her manager, rushed over. "Emma, honey, what's wrong?" But Emma couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only watch him get closer to the door. And then, and I love this part, Alexander walked in. He wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't Sunday, but he'd had a meeting cancel and thought, why not grab coffee? He took one look at Emma's face, followed her line of sight to the man outside, and understood immediately. What Alexander did next is something I want you to really hear, because it matters. He didn't confront the stepfather. He didn't make a scene. He simply positioned himself between Emma and the door, called Benjamin on speakerphone, and said calmly to Beth, "Could you please take Emma to the back room, now?" Benjamin arrived in 6 minutes with Daniel. Christopher was on a video call from his car, already contacting their lawyer. The stepfather tried to enter. Alexander met him at the door, all 6 feet 2 inches of calm, corporate power. "This is private property. The employee you're looking for doesn't wish to see you. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "That's my daughter." "Stepdaughter," Alexander corrected, his voice ice. "And she's an adult who doesn't want contact with you. You need to leave, or I'm calling the police for harassment." The stepfather tried to argue, tried to push past, but Benjamin and Daniel flanked Alexander, 3 successful, powerful men forming a wall. And the stepfather left. Screaming threats, but he left. In the back room, Emma was having a complete meltdown. Years of suppressed trauma pouring out. Beth held her while Christopher talked to her on the phone, his voice gentle. "You're safe. Breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. You're safe, Emma. I promise you're safe." When she finally calmed down enough to speak, the first thing she said was, "I'm so sorry." And Alexander, who had come to the back room, knelt down to her eye level and said something that breaks my heart every time I think about it. "Emma, you have nothing to apologize for, not to us, not to anyone. What happened to you wasn't your fault. How you survived it is extraordinary, and you never ever have to face him alone again." That's when Emma finally broke. Not the panic attack kind of breaking. The healing kind. The kind where you've been holding everything together for so long that when someone finally tells you it's okay to fall apart, you do. She told them everything. The abuse, the escape, The 18 months of just trying to survive, the shame, the fear, the loneliness. And they listened. All four brothers, Beth, even Mr. Peterson, who had wandered back there, worried. They all just listened. Here's where the story gets really good. The brothers didn't just defend Emma once and disappear. They built a support system. Alexander's lawyer filed a restraining order that week. Pro bono. Airtight. Benjamin found her a new apartment in a secure building, not paying for it because Emma wouldn't have accepted that, but using his connections to find an affordable place that actually had working locks and security cameras. Christopher started coming to the coffee shop regularly, not to hover, but just to be a friendly face. He introduced her to his therapist, a woman who specialized in trauma. "No pressure," he said, "but she changed my life. Thought she might help you too." Daniel got her involved in the self-defense classes, not as a victim, but as a participant, a person reclaiming her power. But here's the most beautiful part. The coffee shop became a community. Beth, who had always been kind but distant, started really looking out for Emma. Mr. Peterson, the old man with the newspaper, appointed himself as her unofficial grandfather. The college students started leaving encouraging notes with their tips. Emma went from invisible to seen. And at first, it was terrifying. Being seen meant being vulnerable, but slowly she started to understand that being seen also meant being connected, being real, being alive. She started therapy, started processing the trauma instead of just surviving it, started having nightmares, but also started having mornings where she woke up without that immediate sense of dread. 3 months after the incident, she wore a short-sleeved shirt without thinking about it. Then she caught herself and almost cried. Alexander noticed. Of course he noticed. "You look happy," he said simply. And Emma realized she was. Not perfectly healed, not free of fear, but happy. Actually happy. "I am," she said, and her voice was stronger than she'd ever heard it. "Now, I know some of you are waiting for the romance part. And yes, Emma and Alexander eventually fell in love, but not in the way you might think. It wasn't instant. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow and careful and built on the foundation of respect. Alexander didn't pursue her while she was vulnerable. He waited. He let her heal. He let her become strong enough that when she said yes to dinner, it was from a place of choice, not need. Their first date was 10 months after they met. 10 months of friendship, of trust building, of Emma learning that she deserved kindness. And when Alexander finally told her he loved her, you know what she said? "I love me too." Then she smiled and added, "And I love you." Because that's the thing about healing. You have to learn to love yourself before you can really love someone else. The brothers became her family. Benjamin, the protective one who still texted her every morning to make sure she was okay. Christopher, who painted with her on weekends and taught her that art could be therapy. Daniel, who invited her to volunteer at the foundation and showed her that her pain could become purpose. Emma started designing awareness materials for domestic violence organizations, started speaking at events, started being the person she wished she'd had when she was hiding in that tiny apartment, thinking she'd always be alone. So what's the lesson here? I think it's this. Your pain doesn't have to be loud to matter. Your struggle doesn't have to be visible to be real. And sometimes the people who save us aren't heroes in capes. They're just humans who decide to actually see each other. Emma was silent in her suffering because she thought she had to be. Because abuse teaches you that your voice doesn't matter, that no one will believe you, that you deserve what's happening. But 4 brothers who had known their own pain recognized hers. And they did something radical. They showed up. Consistently, without judgment, without expectation. If you're watching this and you're hiding pain behind a smile, Please hear me. You deserve to be seen. You deserve help. You deserve kindness. Your suffering is not a burden. Your story matters. And if you're someone who sees someone struggling, don't look away. Don't assume someone else will help. Be the person who asks the question, who offers the support, who sees them. Because we're all Emma sometimes, and we're all capable of being those brothers. Hey, before you go, if this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss stories like this. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been invisible in your pain, or have you been the person who saw someone else's? Let's talk about it. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And here's my question for you. What's one small gesture of kindness you can do this week for someone who seems invisible? Challenge yourself. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching, and remember, you matter. Your story matters. I'll see you in the next one.